I bought a house quietly, never expecting my mother to show it off to my brother and his wife, telling them they needed it more. I hadn't planned to keep it hidden, but when no one asks about your life, silence becomes a routine. That's how it began. Silence. Then it became mine. Entirely mine. I saved for years, adding my grandmother's untouched inheritance kept in a separate account. While my siblings accepted help as if it were expected, I worked late cleaning teeth and spent weekends photographing weddings, graduations, and families I didn't know. I cut corners. I learned to make rice 10 different ways. I said no to fun, indulgent, and spontaneous things. There was no safety net for me. Only discipline, exhaustion, and a quiet thought. Maybe someday this will pay off. The house wasn't grand. It was a modest 2-bedroom bungalow in an older neighborhood with creaky stairs and dated wallpaper. But the moment I saw it, I knew it wasn't about the house. It was about what it represented. Something I built on my own. Something no one gave me. I didn't tell my family, not out of revenge or power, but because I already knew their reactions. My mother would frown and question me privately. My brother would laugh like it was amusing. My father would nod, tolerating but unimpressed. They always saw me as the one who didn't need much, the quiet one, the one who just gets by. When you don't ask for help, people assume you don't need anything. Keeping it secret felt like safety for a while. I slept on a mattress on the floor, surrounded by boxes and paint cans. I fixed the leak under the kitchen sink myself after watching 6 tutorials. I painted each room slowly and carefully. I chose soft lighting and warm wood tones. Every detail felt like a small rebellion. No one criticized my choices. No one asked why I painted the bedroom dark olive green. No one suggested I get rid of the mismatched antique mirror. No one reminded me I was single like it was a problem to solve. For the first time, I had a space that reflected me, not what others expected. I still kept my apartment near work, which gave me an excuse not to explain. I told coworkers I was helping a friend renovate a house. That was partly true. The friend was me. The house was mine, my secret. Every free moment I had, I spent there. Even when I wasn't painting or fixing something, I sat on the back steps with tea, watching leaves fall, letting the quiet remind me I hadn't failed. Not really. I'd survived. I'd made it. And even if no one clapped for me, I could clap for myself. When my landlord mentioned break-ins nearby, I installed a basic security system with cameras. It wasn't paranoia, just practical protection for my investment. I told myself, one day I might invite them all, host a dinner, reveal everything. Maybe they'd see me differently. Maybe they wouldn't. But at least I could say I did this. That day never came. 6 weeks passed. I continued working both jobs, balancing my apartment and my house like parallel lives. My mother called occasionally, usually to talk about my brother's latest business move or my sister's drama. When she asked where I'd been, I said, busy with work. She didn't ask what else I was busy with. I waited for the right moment to tell her, but it never appeared. Then, on a gray Thursday, everything changed. It was a normal afternoon. I had just finished with a patient, a teenager who barely spoke, and was reviewing sterilization charts in the back office when my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a calendar reminder. Motion detected. Front door. I paused, tapped the alert. The video opened. I frowned. My mother stood at my front door with a key. She wasn't alone. My brother's wife stood behind her, holding a reusable shopping bag. And behind them, a third woman I didn't recognize, dressed in business casual, holding a folder. I watched, frozen. My mother unlocked the door like she'd done it 100 times. They stepped inside, laughing and chatting. The stranger turned and said something I couldn't make out. My mother gestured toward the living room. It took a full minute before I realized what was happening. She was giving them a tour of my house with my key, without my permission. My chest tightened. My skin prickled. I suddenly remembered 3 weeks ago, when I had the flu and couldn't drive myself to urgent care. I'd called my mother. She'd driven me, stayed while I got treated, then took me home to the apartment. I'd been foggy from fever. When she offered to grab my house keys just in case, I'd barely registered handing them over. I never asked for them back. I lowered the volume and watched, the video stuttering slightly as they moved from room to room. My house, my walls, my furniture, my refuge. They walked right in like it belonged to them. They moved through the hallway as if shopping. My mother's voice floated through the audio. The natural light in this room is lovely in the mornings. She opened the curtains I'd just hemmed last week. My sister-in-law nodded, murmured something. The stranger, clearly a real estate agent, took notes on a clipboard. They stopped in the kitchen. My kitchen. I'd sanded and stained those cabinets myself, replacing the knobs one by one after work. Choosing warm brass because it reminded me of the tiny diner where I used to eat pancakes after long shifts. My mother leaned against the counter, pointing out the original hardwood floors like she'd paid for them. The longer I watched, the colder I felt. I didn't yell. I didn't call anyone. I just stared at my phone, breathing through my nose, trying not to shake. When they reached the second bedroom, the one I planned to turn into a photo editing studio, the agent gestured to the walls. With a fresh coat of paint and updated blinds, this could be a perfect nursery. Nursery, that word hit like a slap. I ended the stream. My hands stayed clenched around the phone long after the screen went dark. Back in the clinic, fluorescent lights buzzed. Someone called my name from the front desk. I didn't answer. I sat upright, perfectly still, but everything inside me tilted sideways. I told my boss I had a migraine. I don't know how I made it to the parking lot without crumbling. I sat in my car, engine off. Fists on the steering wheel, feeling the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. Not rage, just quiet devastation. They didn't even think to ask. Not my mother, not my brother, not his wife. Someone had walked into my space, across my floors, opened my drawers, breathed in my soap without permission. By the time I got there, they were gone. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it, but it didn't feel the same. I stood in the doorway, staring at the worn doormat, wondering how long they'd planned this. How many times had she intended to come back? I checked every room, looking for proof. A cushion out of place, a drawer slightly open, a missing glass. Nothing obvious, but it all felt touched. On the console by the window, I spotted a piece of paper folded neatly in half. My mother's handwriting, slanted and purposeful, written in blue pen on the back of a grocery receipt. This place is far too big for you. Think about what's practical. You'll understand one day. No greeting, no signature, no apology, just that. My throat tightened. She didn't see it as mine. None of them did. In their eyes, I was just borrowing time until someone more deserving, someone with a husband, maybe a baby, could take over. I slept at my apartment that night, not because it was closer to work, but because I couldn't stand being inside walls that had been trespassed. The next morning, I skipped my shift and drove straight to the house. I parked across the street, watching. Nothing happened. Just still. I texted my mother 4 words. "I need my key back." She replied 20 minutes later. "I still have it from when you were sick. You shouldn't be out there alone so much. We're just looking out for you." Looking out for me? I didn't answer. I couldn't. I sat on the floor, legs pulled to my chest, staring at the blank wall I hadn't decorated yet. There had been so many moments I'd wanted to share. The first time I fixed a leaky faucet, how warm the kitchen looked at dusk, how soft the bedroom felt when it rained. But not like this. Not as a transaction, not as a gift to be reassigned. Later that evening, I checked the camera history. Another entry from 4 days earlier. My mother, alone with a measuring tape. My home had been a showroom, a secret she used for her own plans. Maybe she thought I wouldn't notice, or maybe she counted on me not saying anything, like always. But I wasn't quiet anymore. The next morning, I sat at my apartment kitchen table with the note still in me. My phone was on speaker. The screen lit up with her name. It rang twice before she answered. "You're up early," she said lightly, like we were picking a brunch spot. "I saw the camera footage," I said flatly. A pause. "Oh," she said, "I figured you might eventually. You used a key I gave you for an emergency. You entered my house without permission. You brought people with you. And you left a note." A sigh, the kind before guilt trips. "You're making this bigger than it is." "No, you made it bigger the second you stepped inside. I only went because your brother and his wife are going through a tough time. I thought it might help to see what's out there. And that place, it's lovely, but it's too much for just one person, don't you think?" There it was, the sentence that summarized every subtle dismissal I'd swallowed for years. "It's not too much for me," I said. "I bought it. I earned it. I live there." Another pause. I imagined her at her kitchen counter, coffee half finished, not understanding why I was upset, or pretending not to. "I know you worked hard," she said, like she was patting me on the head through the phone. "But it's not just about that. Houses are meant for families. It's a lot of space, a lot of responsibility. You're not even there full time. And with your schedule," I cut her off. "You don't get to decide what I can handle." "I'm not deciding. I'm worrying." "No, you're controlling." She inhaled sharply, offended. "Don't speak to me like that. Then stop treating me like I'm 10. She laughed, tight and defensive. "I'm your mother. I'll always care what's best for you." Caring doesn't involve sneaking into someone's home and showing it to a real estate agent. She's not an agent. She's a friend. She works in staging. I just wanted an opinion. You wanted an opinion on how to give away something that doesn't belong to you. She was just looking. Nothing was decided. You shouldn't have been there at all. "She's pregnant," my mother said, like that excused everything. I blinked. "What?" "Your brother's wife. They haven't told anyone yet." I shouldn't have said it, but they're desperate. Their apartment is cramped, and his business isn't doing well. This house, it could be a real step forward for them. I stared at the wall, trying to process what she'd just dropped, like it was small talk. "So you walked into my home and imagined a future where I just handed it over?" "It's not about taking anything from you." "Then what is it about?" She went quiet. Then softly, "You're alone. You have no partner, no children. You work too much. I thought maybe you'd see this isn't practical long-term, that it doesn't have to be yours forever." I pressed my thumb against the corner of the table, grounding myself. "Let me say this clearly," I said. "That house is mine. I paid for it. Every nail, every tile, every chipped bit of paint. It is not temporary. It's not transitional. It's not waiting to be handed off to someone you think is more deserving. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being firm. You're throwing away your family over a house. No, I said, you're threatening to throw me away because I finally claimed something of my own. Silence. Then she spoke low and sharp. You've always been difficult. I almost laughed. No, I've always been quiet. That's different. I hope you can live with this choice. I've been living with your choices my whole life. I'll be fine. I hung up before she could reply. My hands shook, but I felt strangely calm. The calm that comes after a storm you didn't start, but finished. I expected an explosion afterward. Messages, calls, accusations. But there was nothing. Hours passed, then a day, then two. Not even my brother reached out. For a moment, I wondered if I'd gone too far. But then I pictured my mother standing in my hallway with a stranger, smiling like she owned the place, like I was just in the way. No, that door needed to be closed, this time by me. I booked the locksmith the next morning. No hesitation, no second guessing. I called from the back of the dental clinic during lunch, chewing on a protein bar while holding the phone between my shoulder and cheek. The woman on the line said she could have someone there by noon the next day. I told her I'd take off work. It was the most satisfying call I'd made in months. I arrived early. The locksmith was a man with calloused hands and a gravelly voice. He didn't ask questions, just nodded when I said, "Full change, all exterior locks." I watched him work, standing a few feet away like it was a medical procedure, as if staying close might make it feel final, make it feel mine. When he handed me the new keys, I held them like something sacred. "Only you with copies?" he asked. "Yes," I said. That night, I slept at the house again. Mattress on the floor, surrounded by soft shadows and silence. But this time, the quiet didn't feel vulnerable. It felt earned. I didn't hear from anyone for 4 days. No texts, no voicemails, no apologies disguised as check-ins. Just absence. An absence I'd apparently triggered by daring to say no. It stung. Of course it did. But beneath the sting was something solid. For once, the silence felt like mine. On the 5th day, a car pulled into the driveway. I was in the kitchen unpacking groceries, listening to a podcast about art theft, when the notification pinged. Motion detected. Driveway. I set down the bag of spinach and walked slowly to the window. It was her. She didn't knock. At first, she just stood on the porch, staring at the door, as if expecting it to open by itself. Her purse hung from one shoulder. Then she tried the handle. When it didn't move, her face shifted. She knocked once, sharp, then again, louder. I moved closer, heart pounding. I didn't open it. I spoke through the door. "You don't have a key anymore." There was a pause. "I figured," she said flatly. I waited. "I just wanted to talk." We spoke through the narrow glass panel beside the door. I saw her shift her weight. She looked smaller somehow, less certain. Maybe it was the barrier between us, or maybe it was the first time I'd stopped making things easy. "I know you're angry," she said. "I'm not angry," I replied. "I'm just done staying quiet." Another silence. "I only ever wanted to help." "No," I said, "you wanted control." "That's not fair. It's not up for debate." I heard her inhale, then speak in that calm, composed tone she used during PTA meetings and doctor visits. "Your brother and his wife are struggling. You don't see the full picture." "And I never will," I said, "if everyone keeps making decisions behind my back." She stepped closer, her hand hovering over the doorframe like she wanted to touch it. I raised you to be practical. No, I said. You raised me to be useful, to adapt, to expect less. Practical was just your excuse. That's not true. Then why is it so hard for you to let me have something? Why does it bother you that I own this house, that I'm fine without help, that I didn't need permission? Her voice cracked, just barely. Because I don't want you to end up alone. I let out a short, dry laugh. You already made sure I was. It wasn't meant to wound her. It was just the truth. Every family dinner where my achievements were brushed aside. Every time someone else's crisis mattered more than my progress. Every moment I was expected to need nothing because I wasn't falling apart loudly enough. She pressed her hand to the door. You think I don't see you? She said, too late. A long pause. Then she said, this is a mistake. You'll regret shutting people out. No, I said quietly. What I regret is letting you in. I stepped away from the door. I didn't wait for her to reply. A minute later, I heard the car pull away. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I finished putting away the groceries, sat at the kitchen table, and let the quiet settle around me. Only this time, it felt protected. It was mine. The silence lasted longer than I expected. At first, it felt peaceful. I waited for another knock, another voicemail, another demand disguised as concern. But the days passed quietly. No calls, no visits, just stillness. Then the surface-level texts started. My brother sent the first one 2 weeks later. Hey, Mom's still upset. Maybe reach out. A few days later, no judgment. Just saying, this isn't worth breaking the family over. Think about it. I didn't respond. Then my sister sent a photo of a casserole. Missing family dinners. Let's just move on. Each message felt like a pebble hitting a window I just sealed shut. Not enough to break through, but enough to remind me they were still outside, waiting for me to crawl back through the cracks. No one asked how I was. No one said she was wrong. No one wondered why I'd felt cornered. They just wanted me to fix the mess I didn't make. So I stayed quiet. In the house, I kept busy, scrubbing baseboards that didn't need cleaning, rearranging kitchen drawers, folding and refolding towels. I replaced the doorbell, hung blackout curtains, printed and framed my own photos, sunrises, foggy streets, stray cats, proof of a life I'd built without applause. Some days I felt proud, other days like a stranger in my own skin. Because the truth is, even when you choose distance, it doesn't mean you stop wanting to be chosen. I still woke up checking my phone for a real message. A sign that someone in that house remembered me outside of the role I always played. But all I got were polite reminders to fall back in line. My days were full. Work at the clinic, photo edits at night, errands, house projects. But the quiet between them cut sharper now. I'd never been someone who needed crowds. I liked stillness, but this stillness wasn't soft. It echoed. Sometimes I caught myself rehearsing conversations aloud, imagining what I'd say if they apologized or if they didn't, what I'd do if my mother came back. I never found an answer that felt right. One night, after photographing a couple who couldn't stop arguing, I came home and stood in the dark living room without turning on the lights. The house felt heavy. I sat on the couch and tried to remember the last time I'd laughed with someone here. The last time someone had just stayed, to talk, not to take, not to fix. The thought pressed down on me, slow and suffocating. It wasn't that I regretted my choice. I didn't. But being right doesn't stop you from feeling alone. That night, I slept with the hallway light on, a small rebellion against the dark. In the morning, I made coffee, pulled on a hoodie, and went into the yard. The soil was turned, but still empty. I knelt and pulled weeds by hand. It wasn't about the weeds, it was about control. The house had become my mirror, solid, unfinished, built through effort. But even mirrors need light to reflect anything. I was realizing I couldn't do everything alone, not forever. But I also didn't want fake connection. If anyone was going to step inside again, it had to be someone who actually saw me, not someone who looked past me for what I could give. After a week of silence, my siblings stopped texting. I didn't miss them exactly. I missed what we could have been. If they'd ever made space for me to exist beyond being quiet, capable, invisible. When my lease ended, I started living in the house full-time. One night, sitting on the back step with tea in hand, I watched the moon rise. The air was crisp. "You're not crazy for wanting more," I whispered. It felt strange at first, then steady. I said it again, louder. "You're not crazy for wanting more." And for once, the silence didn't hurt. It agreed. She came again 3 weeks later, unannounced, carrying a grocery bag and a bottle of red wine. I opened the door. Still wearing cleaning gloves, one AirPod in, music faint in my ear. "You didn't text," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "You haven't answered texts in a month. I figured you forgot how doors work." I didn't. She lifted the bag. I brought food. There was no point arguing. She walked in like she belonged there, which, oddly enough, felt comforting. I closed the door and removed my gloves. In the kitchen, she unpacked crackers, cheese, grapes, and a container smelling of roasted garlic. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "So," she said, opening the wine, "do you want to tell me what's going on? Or should we eat first and pretend you're fine?" "I am fine." She gave me a look. "Please, I've known you since before you learned what concealer was. You're not fine." I sighed, ran a hand through my hair, and grabbed 2 glasses. We sat by the window, at the table I'd sanded and stained myself. She poured the wine, pushed a napkin toward me, and waited. I told them. I said finally, about the house. Sort of. She popped a grape into her mouth. Define sort of. They found out. Mom let herself in, gave a tour, and left a note telling me to think practically. Her eyes widened. She came inside? How did she have a key? I gave it to her when I was sick last month. Forgot to take it back. She set her glass down, harder than she needed to. That's insane. I know. And then I confronted her. She said the house was too much for someone single. She was showing it to my brother and his wife. They're expecting. Her face twisted. So she was just repurposing your life. Exactly. She leaned back, studying me. What did you do? I changed the locks, stopped replying, told her she'd crossed a line. That's not a line, she said. That's your entire boundary smashed with a crowbar. Silence filled the space, broken only by the ticking clock. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. What? The house? No, standing up to them. I stared at the wood grain on the table. Sometimes I wonder if the silence was worth it. But then I remember her walking through my door like it was hers, and I know I couldn't stay quiet anymore. She nodded. You shouldn't have to, but I did for years, and they liked it that way. She tore a piece of bread, dipped it in the container. I get it, really. But is this what you wanted? A house no one visit, a family that won't talk unless you apologize. It's what I needed. I was done shrinking to make room for everyone else. She met my eyes. And now that you've expanded, is there room for anyone else? The question hit harder than I expected. I don't know. You don't have to be either invisible or untouchable, she said softly. There's space in between. I don't know if they deserve that space. They probably don't, she said easily. But you do. You deserve connection, real connection, not the kind that comes with conditions or hidden keys. I looked around the kitchen. The walls I'd painted, the lighting I'd chosen, the quiet I'd built. I wanted this to be mine, I said. It is, she replied, but having something of your own doesn't mean you have to live alone. I didn't answer. We ate quietly, not awkward, just thoughtful. Later, we moved to the couch. She curled her legs under herself, sipping the last of the wine. I sat beside her, hands on my knees. You're strong, she said gently, but you don't have to be alone to prove it. I closed my eyes. I just don't know how to be in the middle. It's always been stay quiet and be accepted, or speak up and be shut out. She rested her head on my shoulder. Maybe this is where something new starts. You decide who gets in and who doesn't. That night, after she left, I sat by the front door for a long while. I didn't check my phone or the cameras. I just listened to the quiet and asked myself, if I let someone in again, would I recognize the sound of real belonging? I wasn't sure, but for the first time, I wanted to find out. He wouldn't. His pride. Yes, I replied, more bitterly than I meant. That sounds familiar. I'd thought she might co-sign something or help us refinance, but instead, she started pushing this idea about your house, how it was too big for you, how it would be better used by a family. That word again. She made it sound as though you wouldn't mind. ... She added softly. I scoffed. Of course she did. I hadn't known she'd taken your key. I hadn't known she was showing it off like the decision was already made. I leaned back in my chair, fingertips pressed together to keep my voice steady. So you're saying this was her idea? I'm saying it got out of hand, and I didn't stop it. The weight of that admission filled the room. We sat in silence. My tea went cold. I wanted to come sooner, she said, but I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to lie. I didn't want to defend what she did, but I also couldn't let you think I was okay with it. Were you? I asked. Her eyes met mine. No. I studied her face, thinking of all the years I'd watched her slip into the family like a perfect fit. How my mother praised her. How my brother always shined. I'd assumed their world was made of easy answers and clear choices. Now here she was, fragile, messy, human. Why didn't you just ask me? I said. She gave a weak smile. Because I assumed you'd say no. I probably would have. I know. We both laughed once, a small breath of irony. I'm not angry at you, I said after a pause. But I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt. I don't expect you to, she replied. I just wanted to stop pretending everything was fine. The sun dipped low, orange streaks across the floor. The house felt still again, but not empty. She stood slowly. I won't come back unless you invite me. I mean that, I nodded. At the door she turned. He's ashamed, she said quietly. He won't admit it, but he is. About the business. About not being able to provide the way he thought he would. I opened the door for her. I understand shame, I said, but it doesn't justify what happened. No, she agreed, it doesn't. She stepped outside, then stopped. For what it's worth, she said, your house is beautiful. This time, I believed her. And when I closed the door, it didn't feel like I was shutting her out. It felt like closing something that had finally reached an end. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, but not in the soothing way I'd grown to love. It felt tight, like the walls were holding their breath. Her words echoed, he's ashamed. I sat on the couch past midnight, sipping cold tea, thinking about him, my brother, the one who always seemed to know how to move through the world in a way I didn't. Loud when it helped him, quiet when it didn't. The one who never had to ask twice for anything. The one who somehow always had more room than the rest of us. I realized something that night. I had spent years resenting how easily he received things, never stopping to wonder what he might be hiding behind that ease. It didn't make what happened right, but it made it harder to flatten him into a villain. Still, that didn't mean I wanted to forgive. It just meant I couldn't ignore the nuance anymore. I walked into the second bedroom, my almost studio, and stood in the center of the floor. The pale light was soft and even, just the way I'd imagined when I painted the walls. I thought about how close I'd come to losing it without realizing it. They had never seen me as permanent. That was what stung. Not just that they wanted the house, but that they thought I'd step aside quietly, the way I'd always moved out of the way, of conflict, of attention, of inheritance. And my mother, God, it hit me then in a way it hadn't before. She probably thought she was helping. Twisted as it was, she didn't think she was stealing. She thought she was correcting a mistake. A house in my name felt like a misplacement of resources to her, something unnatural, something to be fixed before it got out of hand. I sat on the floor and leaned against the wall, knees pulled up, forehead resting on my arms. This was the part no one mentions when they say boundaries are empowering. The part where you finally get what you want and then realize how much you lost along the way. The house was safe now. I'd secured it, locked it down, but I hadn't prepared for the hollowness that came after reclaiming it. The next few days passed slowly. My routines stayed the same. Work, edits, errands, projects, but I moved through them like someone else was steering. Not sad exactly, but detached. The idea came quietly in the middle of a Tuesday while rinsing dishes. Not a lightning bolt, not a grand epiphany, just a steady thought. What if I invite them here? Not to surrender, not to smooth things over, but to set the terms, my terms. The house had become a symbol of everything I'd fought for: autonomy, respect, space. And yet I'd spent weeks defending it from behind locked doors. I hadn't opened it with pride. I'd hidden in it, protected myself. But maybe it was time to reclaim it differently. I didn't want to reconcile for show. I didn't want excuses dressed as affection. I wanted honesty, clarity, maybe even a beginning, or maybe just closure. That night, I drafted the message. Simple, no theatrics. I'm making dinner this Sunday at the house. If you'd like to come, you're invited. Come as you are. I sent it to my mother, my brother, my sister, and, to my surprise, my father too. Then I turned my phone face down and refused to obsess over replies. It didn't take long. My brother first. We'll be there. Then my sister. You're cooking? Can I bring dessert? Even my father replied with a thumbs up, his version of emotional availability. My mother didn't answer right away. I didn't expect her to. But late the next day, she sent, "Okay, thank you." No emoji, no elaboration. It was enough. I spent Saturday prepping, deliberately, not obsessively. Grocery list, hallway cleared, windows cleaned. I set the table with mismatched plates and cloth napkins from a thrift shop. No centerpieces, no forced smiles, just food and space. Sunday I cooked slowly. Roasted vegetables, baked herb chicken, lentils simmering with garlic and thyme. A fennel salad, just because I liked how it looked in the bowl. Not for them, for me. At 5:57, a car pulled up. I took a deep breath and opened the door before they knocked. My brother stepped in first, holding a bottle of wine. His wife followed, glancing around as though she'd never seen the place in daylight. My sister came next, wearing too much perfume and carrying a bakery box. My father entered quietly, hands in his jacket pockets. My mother hesitated at the threshold. I met her eyes and stepped aside. "Come in," I said, calm, even. She entered without a word. The house filled slowly, shoes by the door, jackets on hooks. My brother wandered through the living room, murmuring, "You did all this yourself?" His voice lacked its usual edge. My sister ran her fingers along the windowsill. "This paint color is perfect." I just nodded. We sat at the table as the sun dipped low, soft, warm light all around. I poured water into mismatched glasses and passed the dishes. No speeches, no tension yet. We ate. My brother asked about my new camera. My sister showed a picture of a friend's baby. My father said nothing, but kept reaching for lentils. Even my mother commented that the chicken was well-balanced, whatever that meant. I didn't rush. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was hosting to earn approval. I wasn't shrinking to fit them in the room. I had built this space, and they were sitting in it on my terms. After dinner, I gave them a proper tour. "This is the guest room," I said. The walls took 3 coats. In the kitchen, I pointed to the open shelves. I hung those by myself, twice actually. The first time, they weren't level. They smiled, they nodded. No one interrupted. No one corrected me. In the bedroom, my sister whispered, "It feels so calm in here." "It is," I said. At the end of the tour, we returned to the living room. My brother's wife offered to help with dishes. I declined. I wanted to do it later, on my time. They stayed longer than I expected. No one mentioned the incident. No one apologized. But there was a shift, small, undeniable, a quiet recognition in the air. When they stood to leave, my mother lingered near the door. She looked at me, not past me. Her expression unreadable, her voice low. "You've made something beautiful." "Thank you," I said. She opened her mouth like she might say more, then just squeezed my hand lightly and walked out. I stood at the door for a moment after it closed, not because I was unsure, but because I wasn't. They had come, they had seen, and I had stayed whole. After they left, I cleaned the kitchen slowly, methodically. The dishes clinked softly in the sink. The leftover wine caught the last light on the counter. It hadn't been perfect. No one had apologized. No one had given the speech I'd sometimes imagined, the one where they acknowledged every moment I'd been overlooked, every assumption about my silence. But something had shifted. For the first time, they had been guests in my space instead of me being a visitor in theirs. They had asked about my choices instead of questioning them. They had seen what I'd built instead of what they thought I lacked. It was a beginning. Maybe not the one I dreamed of, but one I could work with. The house felt different afterward. Still mine, but not defensive anymore. Like it had exhaled. Over the following weeks, the texts started again, but they were different now. My sister sent a photo of a sunset from her apartment. "Made me think of your dining room lighting." My brother forwarded an article about small business photography trends. "Thought you might like this." Even my mother texted once, "How is the garden coming along?" Small gestures, nothing dramatic, but consistent in a way that felt intentional instead of obligatory. I didn't reply to every message immediately. I wasn't performing gratitude or rushing to rebuild what had been broken. But I didn't ignore them either. I was learning something new, that I could engage without disappearing, that I could set boundaries without building walls, that family could be something I participated in rather than something that just happened to me. It would take time, maybe a long time. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight, and patterns formed over years don't dissolve with one dinner. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a choice in how this story continued. And that choice was mine, on my terms, in my house, where I belonged.